It's 1:30. The Monday, April 18th meeting of the Oklahoma City Traffic and Transportation Commission is called to order. Commissioner Witcher.
Present.
Commissioner Martin. Here. Commissioner Kula.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Schuline.
Here.
Commissioner Jenkins.
Here.
Commissioner May. Here. Commissioner Clayton. Commissioner Clayton, would you say a prayer, please?
We come this afternoon in thanksgiving, thanking for the blessings that you have bestowed upon us, and let us ever be mindful that you are the source of our need. We pray that everything that we do here this afternoon will meet with thy divine approval. Hear our prayers. This we pray. Amen.
Anyone wishing to speak should see Cherry and fill out one of the blue forms. I will ask that you limit your talk to 3 minutes, and only if you have something to add that hasn't been said by a previous speaker. Item number 2, approval of the minutes of the March 21st meeting.
So move. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the March 21st meeting. Could I have your votes, please? Passed. Thank you. Item number 3 is the report on licensed taxi and wrecker services.
Afternoon. Sergeant Mark McCaleb, I'm the Vehicle for Hire Inspector. During the last quarter, we issued 60 new permits and renewed 57. We had 12 drivers that transferred in between companies. We inspected 25 vehicles with 1 failure. That's the taxis and vans. We inspected 2 limousines, both of which passed. We had 10 complaints that we investigated. None of those were complaints from citizens. They were complaints of drivers in relation to the city and ordinances and things of that nature. We did issue 1 citation for operating on an expired permit. And that's it.
Questions or comments from commissioners?
Yes, sir. The last time you were here, I believe, was when we activated that brand new cab, and we asked you to do some spot checks to make sure 24/7 coverage. Has any of that been done in the last couple months?
We haven't at this time, no. We haven't checked on it. Are you talking about the Castle cab? Or
No, Castle was just last month.
Right.
I think Thunder was at the last time you were here, and I think I asked to make sure you check with them and make sure that there is 24/7 coverage and they do answer calls at all times.
I haven't received any complaints that they're not.
Okay.
We haven't done any checks, but I haven't received any complaints that anyone's called in requesting their service and haven't been provided.
Very good. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Item 4 is the consent docket. Is there anyone wishing to speak against an item on the consent docket? Do I have a motion?
Second.
I have a motion by Commissioner Clayton, seconded by Commissioner May, to approve the consent docket. Further discussion? Could I have your votes, please? Approved unanimously. Number 5, items for individual consideration. 5A. The applicant is Donna Van Horn, President, Brenton Hills Homeowners Association, P.O. Box 5134, Edmond, Oklahoma. The request is to consider establishing stop control at the following intersections. 1, east-west stop control on Northwest 154th Court / Northwest 154th Street at Claremont Boulevard. 2, north-south stop control on Claremont Boulevard at Northwest 153rd Street. 3, all-way stop control at Brenton Hills Avenue and Wilford Way. And 4, all-way stop control at Northwest 153rd Terrace / Grayson Drive and Claremont Boulevard. Robert Castens, if you'd state your name and address for the record, please.
Yes, my name is Robert Castens. I live at 15404 Essex Court in Brenton Hills. I'm currently the treasurer of the Homeowner Association, and our president is here with us today as well. But Donna was our then president, and sent the letter in. We had actually turned in, I think, 4 separate petitions to try to get stop signs in our neighborhood to control the speed of people driving through the neighborhood. I turned in a little drawing that would show you where the stop signs are as you read off there. If you can read that up there or not. But in any case, if you are looking at Wilford Way, which is on the right side of your drawing, you have about a good 3-block run there where people come in and they turn left, and they have nothing to stop them before they get all the way down to Claremont. And that's probably the worst case scenario of people exceeding the speed limit through our neighborhood. And it's not just it's just people coming into our neighborhood that come in there. But there's just no stop signs at all in the front side of our neighborhood to control traffic, and we're just requesting that the city consider putting some stop signs in for us to help us slow people down.
Thank you, Mr. Castens. Staff's report, please.
Okay, you've got our review comments in front of you. With respect to meeting the city's criteria for stop control of whether it's side street stop or all-way stop, none of these intersections meet any of our criteria. We can recommend the use of yield control based on observed traffic volumes and patterns in order to properly assign right-of-way at the intersections. The appropriate forms of yield control for the Commission's consideration would be east-west yield control at 154th Court / 154th Street at Claremont Boulevard, north-south yield control on Claremont Boulevard at 153rd Street. And this is where you've got a 200-foot offset between the 2 approaches on Claremont Boulevard at where they intersect 153rd Street. We would also recommend southbound yield controls on Brenton Hills at Wilford Way, and finally east-west yield control on 153rd Terrace / Grayson Drive at Claremont Boulevard. And so our recommendations, action on this matter will be at the discretion of the Commission.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve staff's recommendation on yield controls on the 4 different intersections. You want me to repeat them all, or the ones I'm referencing, the ones that were just noted by Stuart Choi?
I think your noting staff's recommendation would be sufficient.
Very good.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a motion by Commissioner May to recommend to approve with staff's recommendations, seconded by Commissioner Witcher. Further discussion? Questions?
Sir, if I may just ask, would that be okay with you? Do you have any concerns with just yield signs?
Well, I mean, we want to do something to get the people stopped, and if slowing them down, putting yield signs up, it certainly, I would hope, help that. And, and you're willing to do it at all 4 of those locations. So I guess we could just see how that goes.
Very good. All right.
Because I think that's generally what you do, I guess, is try to put in yield signs first before you put in stop signs. Is that
Right, initially. And the biggest thing that we noticed is the fact that the intersections don't have quite the volumes that would justify the use of stop control. And some of the intersections have there's a kind of a wide disparity between the traffic volumes on one approach versus another. So stop control wouldn't necessarily be the best form of control at an intersection like that. But, having these controls go in initially won't preclude you from coming back at a later date if you determine that maybe stop control is truly what's necessary for your
Well,
area.
if that's what you're willing to do for us, I guess that's what
Okay.
we'll accept it.
I would ask, are there posted speed limit signs on all of these streets that we have talked about?
Typically, we post speed limit signs coming in off the arterial roads. If they've got issues with, if you think a poignant reminder here and there within the addition might be useful, we can always add them, but
That would be
ordinarily...
great if you could put some speed signs, if it's 25 miles an hour or, something like that. Some additional speed signs on the streets, that would help as well.
Okay.
Are there any stop signs? Seems like there might want to be one at Worthington, and
Currently, there are no stop signs
there's
at
no
all.
stop signs at all.
I think there is one stop sign in the rear of our neighborhood somewhere, but not here. There's not any stop signs here right now. So, I mean, people they can just come in and keep going, so there's nothing to stop them.
Is the neighborhood still under development?
Yes, there's, I'm thinking 10 to 15 open lots left, and there'll be about 240 homes in the neighborhood once it's finished. So we're approaching the last, hopefully, the last 2 years of our development period.
Will 154th, 53rd, 53rd Terrace, and Worthington Lane extend west with the next development?
None of the roads will extend. There's a creek there and the end of the development. So all the roads that are in now are fixed. And
Okay.
they end in cul-de-sacs and have houses on the inside. So.
They're all cul-de-sac at the ends.
Okay. Further discussion? I have a motion by Commissioner May to approve staff's recommendations for yield control, seconded by Commissioner Witcher. Could I have your votes, please? Approved unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to skip to item 8 of the items for individual consideration. The first will be item 8A. The applicant is J&K Enterprises and Imports, LLC, 4345 Southwest 29th Street, Oklahoma City, 73119. The request is to consider an application by J&K Enterprises and Imports, LLC, doing business as Tri-City Shuttle for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to operate 10 vehicles in shuttle service. Okay. If you'd state your name and address for the record, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Jafar Najm. I'm the CEO and president of J&K Enterprises, 4345 Southwest 29th Street, Oklahoma City, 73119. I would request at this time if we could kindly address D in Amendment 8. The reason for that is that had already been addressed last month, had been voted upon, had been objected upon, all the objections rejected.
I'm sorry, did you say item 8D?
8D, as in David, Oklahoma Shuttle.
Okay.
You have it on your
Let
packet.
me restate for the record that we're moving to item 8D.
D,
Okay.
as in David.
Yes. Item 8D, the applicant is J&K Enterprises and Imports, LLC, 4345 Southwest 29th Street, Oklahoma City, 73119. Consider an application from J&K Enterprises and Imports, LLC, doing business as Oklahoma Shuttle for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to operate 20 vehicles in shuttle service.
And we were asked to come back because the city application was misleading, and the representation was not accurate, although it was voted upon by all you gentlemen and ladies. So we were asked to redo the application, which was the revised application. So I would request at this time, since all the shuttles are ready, you have it in the package, the application has been submitted again, if we could kindly vote on this and put this aside, because I do believe, looking at the Traffic Commission's agenda, that on the other three companies, there seems to be one concern, but that has no concern with Oklahoma Shuttle. So if we could put this aside, vote on it, then we can move ahead on A, B, and C concerning the shuttles of J&K Enterprises.
Okay, do you have anything else to add? If
Not at
not,
this-
I'll ask for staff
not at
summary,
this point.
please.
Okay, you've got the staff recommendation before you. In this particular case, if it's the applicant's intent to operate this company using the crimson and orange paint scheme, and for the others to be considered, for the items considered, A, B, and C to be considered separately, then at this point in time, the color scheme would be unique. The name of the operation of the business is unique. They've met all the requirements of sections 5623 and 5624. So with that in mind, with this understanding, staff could recommend approval of this item as submitted.
Thank you, Stuart. Do I have a motion?
So I'd like to make a motion that we accept the application in item 8D as it's actually stated here.
I have a motion by Commissioner Kula, seconded by Commissioner Clayton, to approve item 4D with staff's recommendation to approve. Further discussion?
So I'd just like to make it clear, in my understanding, that the license appeals board sent it back because we used the old paperwork, not the new application form, and the data just wasn't clear, and so therefore they asked it to come back here and be packaged properly. Is that right, Mr. Stark?
Yes, that's my understanding.
Okay, thank you very much.
Further discussion?
Yes, is the only reason that we're hearing this again, since it's already been passed once in March, is that because the application wasn't on new paperwork? Is that the only reason we're listening to this, or is there something different?
Well, the applicant has filed for their certificate of public convenience and necessity on the new forms, the new application forms, which now mirror the current language contained within Chapter 56.
So
that
if we
was-
used the old forms last month, we're using new forms this month, is that the gist of this thing?
That's a primary difference on this
Okay,
application.
I've got another question for council, and that is the License Appeal Board. What right do they have to negate anything that this council or committee does?
Well, that's pursuant to ordinance.
Under the code now, not in an opinion now, I want to know under the code. Municipal code, under what right do they have to negate anything that this committee does?
Pursuant to ordinance, any appeals from the Traffic Commission concerning motor vehicles for hire go to the License Appeals Board, and they have the right to affirm the decision or to send it back to Traffic Commission.
Okay, send it back to be heard again, but not to repeal. When did they get the right to repeal what this council or this group has to say? If they have a right to repeal here, do they have a right to repeal the city council action also?
City Council action, I'm not following city council
I'm
action.
just saying that if they have a right to repeal what this group has done, then do they also have a right to repeal what the city council does?
Now, what they repealed
No,
here
but
was,
is that, can you tell me the code where that exists, where it says they can repeal us, but they cannot repeal the city council?
well, it's done pursuant to ordinance. All appeals in the ordinance, I'll have to get the exact section reference for you. I don't have that
I
off the
wish
top
you
of
would,
my head.
because I don't agree. I don't think that a appeal board, they can send it back for our reconsideration, but they cannot tell us that your action was negated and you're going to have to look at it again. They cannot do that, in my opinion.
With due
But
respect,
I haven't, if they can do it, it should state so under the code.
It does state under the code that,
And it says they can repeal what we're doing, but they can't repeal what the city council does.
no, because the ordinance states that appeals from Traffic Commission go to the License Appeals Board, and on that appeal, the License Appeals Board has the right to either affirm the decision or they can send it back. They don't have the right to modify it.
Okay, well, what I'm being told is they didn't send it back to us. They said that
Right.
your action is in the terms here, the License Appeal Boards reverse this committee's action. They don't have a right to do that. And I think we ought to send them a letter saying so, that, the next time they do something like this, they have a responsibility to address the issues but not repeal what we've done.
Susan, do you have the...
Yes, I have the ordinance here. It's under 26-23. And the License Appeal Board, it says the board's decision in affirming or setting aside, and in this case, they're talking about the revocation or suspension of a license, but we've used this procedure for any appeal to the Traffic Commission. It says that shall be made in writing to the license or permittee, shall have, hold on a second. It says that decision in affirming or setting aside shall be made in writing to the licensee or permittee. So the License Appeal Board has the authority to either affirm or set aside your decision.
Okay. They have that, but they don't have the authority, as it says here, to reverse the TTC.
That's the same thing as setting aside.
No, it's not said at the same
Well,
time.
our opinion would be that it would be the same thing as setting aside the decision here.
Well, they can set it aside, but they don't reverse it. There's a big difference between the two. Setting aside says, okay, you can set that aside and reconsider.
They set it aside because...
Reversing it says, we're going to reverse what you did. And they have that power?
I think they do. I think that the terminology here, setting aside
I
of the
think
Traffic
you're wrong.
Commission's decision, you're welcome to your opinion, but my
I know.
opinion is that they have that authority.
And as you're welcome to your opinion, but when it says set aside, that doesn't say reverse.
Okay.
Setting aside.
My opinion is that's what they're doing by setting aside
Okay.
the decision.
And, sir,
So does anybody know who's on that committee even?
well, sir, if I could take us back about a year and a half ago to 2 years ago when we were on the...
Let me just finish a couple of
Okay.
questions. Does anybody know who's on that committee? Because here we're sitting around this horseshoe, making decisions, and that committee can come alongside, we're going to reverse what you did. Not only reverse it, but,
there has to be an appeal filed with that board, and I can answer who sits on the committee is
but then how come we're not invited to their hearing so that we can hear what they're saying and represent what we're doing? Because they're doing it behind, as far as I'm concerned, closed doors. I wasn't notified of any kind of meeting.
It was a
But
public
they-
meeting, and there was notice posted.
And that was on the agenda?
There was notice posted of the meeting of the License Appeals Board that took place last Monday.
See, again, if we're going to do things in the open and do things right, then we have to notify and communicate with each other. And this is the first I've heard that they have a right to, as it says here, to go ahead and reverse what we did. That's not set aside. Reversing is different than setting aside as far as I'm concerned. And if I'm wrong, I apologize to the council, but the fact of the matter is, in my vocabulary, reversing and setting aside means two different things. Okay, thank you.
with due respect, just to not to confuse the
minute.
issue, but Municipal Code 26-17.
Excuse me just a moment. You haven't been recognized to speak. We've got a discussion going on here.
I just want to bring us back to about a year and a half to 2 years ago when we were on the taxi subcommittee thing that we were doing, and the major review of the whole code. One of the items that we talked about, and it took a while to talk through, was our appeals used to go to city council. And city council could do what they wanted with their appeals. At their request and with the support of council, our appeals now go to this place with the same authority as city council had. And that's what we agreed to do when we redid the actual process. Am I right on that summary that that they have the same appeal authority that city council had. We just now, so now it never goes to city council. Once the appeals does their appeal thing, like here, they bring it back to us, we do what we want. If somebody wants to appeal, it can go back to them. They're the final say. It doesn't go to city council anymore, those issues.
This information should be on the proper forms, but that's not Mr. Jaffer's responsibility to get the proper forms.
Oh, no. And
So it's not his fault, and he's being put through this ringer, so to speak, of going here, going there on stuff that he says, wait a minute, I'm just giving this information, I'm complying, or trying to comply, and so we got to get our act together. The other part of that is when there's an appeal of something that occurred here, we should be notified so we've got a chance to not only attend, but also give evidence, because we're now a participant in that decision. And when that happens and we're not notified, I'm not real happy about it.
And,
Be quite candid with you. That's part of the communications process the city owes the people of the city.
Yes, sir. And I would agree with your first point that the application was made, the information on it was talked about, it was modified. We actually did modify some of the words on the application, and it was voted on and approved. I do agree with you that is a waste of the appeals board time, our time, and their time especially, to just rewrite and to reapply the same information that we approved on. And I do agree with that, sir. Thank you for your time.
I'd like to just add for
Yes,
2
sir.
seconds that we've already paid the price on our time. Our shuttles had been sitting for 1 month at the peak time of shuttling, when we had 35,000 plus people come to the city. So this delaying process from a business standpoint, this was well placed. As far as the code goes, Municipal Code 26-17 clearly states that it is the right of the applicant to complain. Any decision taken by you honorable people. That is what it states. There's a big difference. I'm not an attorney, but I'm an educated man. There's a big difference between an appeal and an objection. This is a public hearing. Objection was made. Not one, 4 objections were made. They filed the appeal on the same objections. These objections were heard. They were rejected. Then the voting took place. So whatever the price had to be paid, we paid. Because in business, the price is either you're conducting business or you're not conducting business. Doors are open or they're closed. Our doors were closed. We had to come back, do the same thing the second time. I was taught by my father, whatever you do it right the first time. That's the shortest possible route. Here's the code. Now, the second point on that is, how do you translate that code? Again, like I said, I'm not an attorney, but I do understand a simple point. I speak 4 languages. If I ask you something in one language, once you translate it, it's not the literal translation of it. It'll have a totally different meaning. So whoever reads it, however you translate it. But the code states simply in our language that we speak in this land, that it is an applicant's right. Whatever decisions you take, I'm the applicant, it's my right. I agree with your decision or I don't agree with your decision. 1.5 million population out in the city that has no concern with this business cannot just walk in and say, hey, hold on. We don't agree with your decision. Well, you have no concern. You can object, but you have no concern to come out from outside, from a laundry shop, and file an appeal. And that's exactly what happened. And we had to sit for a month, go through the rigmarole for no reason. But that's okay. We've moved forward. We moved forward, and we're going to move forward stronger. It gave us more time, and we're going to keep moving forward. That time has passed. We're here for the long haul. It's going to be next year. Convention's still going to come back. This is Oklahoma City. It's going to grow. We're going to bring the same conventions back. We're going to be better prepared. So if something good always comes out from something wrong.
there's one other comment. Since he's already been through this process, and we found out that it wasn't quite right, hopefully that no one has to go through this process again, that it's not quite right, that the city gets their act together, gives out the right applications, and goes through the processes correct. If they're going to go to this license appeal committee, then that we're at least notified, so we've got an option to be in attendance or not to represent what we have done. I think that's the only fair thing about it. Then that means everybody's there. It's not a brand new hearing. It's a, why did you approve what you did? Thank you.
I'd like to, if you don't have anything else to add, there's 3 other people that would like to speak on this. They have listed as A through G, 8A through G, so I'm going to go ahead and call them up if that's all, if you don't have anything else to add at this point. Brooks Richardson. You'd state your name and address, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Brooks Richardson. My address is 100 North Broadway, Suite 1700, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, first of all, Chairman May, the Appeals Board decision actually used the term set aside, not reversed, and so I'm not sure what you were looking at when talking about the reversal, but they actually followed the provisions of the ordinance in what they were allowed to do, and what they did was set aside the decision. Also, Commissioners, the decision was more than just about what application form the application was on. The review before the License Appeal Board, the decision was based upon certain representations that the Appeals Board found were misrepresentations in that application. That decision came down at 5:04 on April 11th, and on April 12th, 7 new applications from the same applicant were submitted to staff, and 6 days later, you're being asked to vote on them. Now, the ordinance, 5624, imposes an obligation on each of you to investigate and consider certain factors before granting an application. It says, shall investigate and consider. And on behalf of my client, Airport Express, who simply wishes to have an even playing field in the city of Oklahoma City, I respectfully suggest that 6 days is not quite enough time to investigate and consider all of the factors that are required. The first factor, and if the Commissioners will look at the staff recommendation, they will note that the staff put out 5 factors, A through E, that must be considered before approving an application. But they only talk about B through E. The requirement of Section A in 5624 is consideration of the ability of the applicant to meet all the requirements of this article. And the article is encompassed in Ordinance 56, not just sections B through E. That would render Section A meaningless. If you meet B through D, then suddenly A is met, and that's not the meaning of it. Section A is to consider whether the applicant can meet all of the requirements of the article. And one of the requirements is a federal motor carrier's license from the Oklahoma Corporation Commission. And this applicant has not met that requirement and cannot meet that requirement. Why? Because the applicant has asked for a variance, 2 rule variances from the...
Mr. Richardson, I'll give you 30 more seconds. Your time's up.
Thank you. The applicant has filed for 2 rule variances from the Oklahoma Corporation Commission that has been heard but not decided upon. There are 2 problems. One, they have filed under the same entity, JNK Enterprises, for 7 DBAs. That is not permitted under the OCC regulations. Second, insurance provisions, insurance coverage provisions. And back in March, they assured this committee that they would have that insurance taken care of. They still, 1 month later, having paid the price of the Commission's decision and the appeal, still don't have the insurance coverage that they're required to have in order to operate a shuttle service. we would request that the commission, at this point, deny the applications, or at the very least, defer them for 30 more days to allow for the investigation that needs to be taken place.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Roger Andrews. We'll hear any comments that have not been heard.
Mr. Chairman, Roger Andrews with Yellow Cab Company, 107 Northwest 14th, Oklahoma City, 73103. I'm here to speak regarding taxi cab matters, not regarding van matters. So I'll wait till we address the taxi cab matters, if that's okay with you.
Thank you. Kahid Rifka. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. If you'll state your name and address.
Sir, my name is Khalid Rifaq. I'm the Vice President of J&K Enterprise. I filled the form out just in case I was needed to talk. I think Jaffer is doing a good job, so.
Appreciate your clarification. Thank you. Further discussion? If you would, restate your motion, please.
I make a motion that we accept the application from J&K Enterprises for the shuttle service as listed in item 8D.
And I have a second by Commissioner Clayton. Does your second still stand? Further discussion?
Yes, sir. I'd like to just throw out there that we talked about this at length last month with staff and legal counsel that this application meets all the requirements of our code, understanding that some items have to be done after we approve this one item, like insurance and inspection of vehicles and all that other stuff occurs before you're actually operating. As far as we're concerned, and based upon counsel and staff, this meets all the requirements of our current code. So I just wanted to make sure that that was clear. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I also add, the License Appeals Board specifically found there was no wrongdoing on the part of the applicant. They thought that the old application used was confusing and misleading. So there was a specific finding that there was no wrongdoing on the part of the applicant.
Thank you. Further comments, discussion? If not, I would ask for your votes. Item 8D is approved unanimously. Thank you. That takes us back to item 8A. I will restate that. J&K Enterprises and Imports, LLC, 4345 Southwest 29th Street, Oklahoma City, 73119. Consider an application from J&K Enterprises and Imports, LLC, doing business as Tri-City Shuttle for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to operate 10 vehicles in shuttle service.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to start off where the gentleman left. Airport Express, the company that he was representing, they claim they've been operating since 1987. That makes them in operation for almost about 24 years. Someone should have informed them that Traffic Commission's purpose and the application has nothing whatsoever to do with insurance, has nothing whatsoever to do with Oklahoma Corporation Commission, has nothing whatsoever to do with Sergeant McCaleb and inspection of vehicles. We're here merely to accept certificate of convenience or to reject it. When we go to pick up our laundry, we don't ask them if we can buy a vehicle too. For that, you have to go to a car salesman, to a car lot. They have a habit of mixing everything together and making a jambalaya of everything, so that they can conveniently mix up all these minds, manipulate the system, mislead everyone, and by the time they're done, everyone's confused sitting over here. We have a short purpose here. You have 3 companies to approve and say yay or nay on certificate of convenience based on looking at the application. Do we fulfill the requirements or we don't? Application's in front of you. It's a 2-page application. Either we are up to par or we're missing something. That's it. It has nothing to do with insurance. All the companies that are listed for our shuttles, as you see the package, have independent EIN numbers, federal tax ID numbers, and thus will be having separate U.S. dots when it comes to the insurance. Ladies and gentlemen, that's one phone call that the certificate is approved. Please have X amount of insurance on each of the companies, on each of the vehicles. They know the process. They've been in business for 24 years. Now, how they've been in business is a separate story. It's going to unfold, because that's how we're going to get our companies approved. Based on the agenda, there was only one concern that the commission staff had, which is our color scheme, that it is not unique. It is the same. These are our Oklahoma shuttles. You have printouts on the package also. We have it on the overhead also.
Excuse me, you have 30 seconds left.
This is Airport Express. They have 4 companies: Metro Express, Airport Express, Airport Shuttle, Express Shuttle. These are all 4 of them together. What is unique about them? They are identical. What is different about them? They've been operating for 24 years. City allowed it, state allowed it, OCC allowed it. Give them the business licenses. I'm sure what's good for the goose is good for the gander. I'm sure ordinance applies across the board for every citizen, every company. I'm sure the law is good for every individual in our land, even today.
Thank you. Brooks Richardson, did you have anything to add? I'll remind you that you have 3 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I don't know if you have a copy of the Appeals Board's decision, but there is no finding that there was no wrongdoing on behalf of the applicant. There was a specific finding that there were misrepresentations on the application, not that it was the incorrect application. What is good for the goose may be good for the gander. And Airport Express, who has been operating in this city for 20 years, over 20 years, has complied with all the requirements of this commission over and over and over again. And one of those requirements that the commission and the commission staff has made sure that Airport Express complied with was providing proper insurance coverage before operating in this city, and making sure that they had the proper certificates and that they could not operate under multiple DBAs. And yet, that is exactly what this applicant wants to not do. Now, we would respectfully suggest that color schemes are a little less important than whether you have the proper insurance coverage and whether you can ever get that coverage. And the OCC has yet to provide a license that would enable the applicant to operate under this commission's authority. We would respectfully request that 3 new shuttle applicants, and I won't speak again on the next 2, not be approved.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Roger Andrews. Thank you. Rivka. Thank you. Could I have staff summary, please?
You've got our comments before you. The applicant has met all the requirements of 5623 and 5624, with the exception of the color scheme requirements set forth in 5624D. Unless the vehicle color scheme is amended, staff cannot recommend approval of the application from J&K Enterprises and Imports for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to operate 10 vehicles in shuttle service under the business name of Tri-City Shuttle. So action on this matter is going to be at the discretion of the commission.
I'm sorry, do I have a motion?
So I make a motion, we accept the application of item 8A from J&K Enterprises for shuttle service, for Tri-City Shuttle Service.
Second. Was that Commissioner Martin seconded? Thank you. I have a motion by Commissioner Kula to approve item 8A, seconded by Commissioner Martin. Further discussion, comments?
Are we going to just ignore the separate coloring?
Let's go around. Let's start on this end, and we'll come around. That's okay. Commissioner Martin.
Yes.
So why the multiple companies? I mean, what is the purpose? What's to be gained by, instead of having one company, one shuttle company, having 2 or 4?
Well, sir, that's our business need. There are other facets into cabbing, into shuttling, that plays a very important part. The irony of the matter is that there are 4 main, so to speak, regulating bodies within this industry. The first step is the Traffic Commission. Then you have the city. Then you have the Oklahoma Corporation Commission. Then you have the Airport Trust. When it comes to shuttling, it is supposed to be to and from airport. The business ethics within our nation, that's how shuttling is done. Shuttles are not a taxi. Once at the airport, you have separate shuttling spots. You have separate taxi spots. I'm sure you all are aware of the fact when you walk out of the airport, shuttles are at a separate spot. Taxis are at a separate spot. We in Oklahoma City, all these 4 regulating bodies are totally detached from each other. There's no network. So one body takes a decision, doesn't have a clue what the other body is doing. The other body takes a decision, doesn't have a clue what the other body is doing. Every body that takes a decision has a direct impact on the business. And the business as such then have to move accordingly. All the strategies have to put in place. That's one main reason. Yesterday, day before yesterday, last week, at the airport, shuttles and cabs move first in, first out. Drivers go and line up. What is the staging area? Called a bullpen. These drivers are the ones who go and purchase the decal to be at the airport. Pay $600. But 2 days later, airport decides each company is going to get 1 spot. Now all of a sudden, the dynamics of that place has changed. They present themselves all of a sudden after 24 years. We're 4 companies. The entire city has never known. Now they get 4 spots. Oklahoma Shuttle comes in, they get 1 spot.
This was at the discretion of the airport?
Yes. So now from a business standpoint, someone's got to protect our driver's back. So the company comes in. This is one reason. Second reason, the most important reason, is J&K Enterprises is not a company that's got one dispatch center sitting over here, and you've got cabs running outside. J&K is a company that very soon will be statewide. We have a call center. We don't need to be in Ardmore. We don't need to be in Tulsa. We can have Thunder Cabs in Tulsa, and the entire company can run from a call center here. Just like our mortgages. We live over here, but someone in South India got a whole package of our mortgages.
Okay, I'm sorry, your time's up.
So basically, the answer to the question is that it gives you more spots at the airport.
Right now, yes, it does. Our cab companies, we get more spots. Our drivers are covered. Their livelihoods are covered.
Okay.
Thank you. Commissioner Kula?
Yes, I'd like to ask your interpretation of the color scheme.
Yes, sir.
Concern. First of all, you showed that the current express services, shuttle services, all of the same color, and you're saying it's a brand item, and therefore the brand of the orange and red is your brand, therefore it can be on different named companies, is what you're saying.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I would like to defer to council on the intent of the code that talks about color schemes. If it's, like he's saying, an enterprise with multiple companies having the same color scheme, or does each company have to have its own color scheme?
No, I think that color scheme and ordinance refers not only to the color, but to also the design. So as long as the design of the vehicles is different enough to differentiate the companies from one another, then that requirement has been fulfilled.
Okay, and am I correct in understanding that what you presented to us are the 4 different colors for
Yes,
your
sir.
4 different companies, the one that we've already approved, and then the
And then
one
down the
now,
road,
and then the next 2?
Down the road, as our company is growing, if you could look at the overhead just for 2 minutes, you have Oklahoma Shuttle. And then down as we grow, by the end of the year, you have Thunder Shuttle, which is, the combination of the colors is the same. That is our brand recognition, OU and OSU colors. But it is different and unique from Oklahoma Shuttle. Then you have Lightning Express. Combination is again the same. Any reasonable person can differentiate. Then you have our next Tri-City Shuttle. Again, the combination of the colors are the same, but they are unique, they're different, and you have all 4 together. You can see that all 4 are entirely different from each other, although the color combination, which is our brand recognition, is the same. And if you can envision moving forward, we are not just talking about Oklahoma City. We're talking about Lawton. We're talking about Tulsa. We're talking about our entire state, wherever this business is going to grow to. So
Okay,
it's not, we're not just talking about city of Oklahoma City.
Thank you.
So the concern from staff was they were all the same color scheme at the original application. Now that he's shown the 4 different colors, and would counsel that it's not just the colors, it's also the scheme, I just wanted to throw that on there, that seems to make this a legal application.
The ordinance requirement is that the scheme has to be different enough so that a reasonable person would not confuse the different licensees. So that's a fact question for the commission to decide, to look at these examples and to decide if they think that they are different enough that a reasonable person would not confuse the different licensees.
The licensees, which would be each company, not the enterprise overarching.
Correct.
And so therefore I refer back to when Thunder Cab came up and the concern of the black and yellow compared to the black of A1 and the yellow of Yellow Cab, that was brought up to actually city council and did get approved. And if I remember another taxi, where they switched the colors, has there been another taxi service that switched those 2 colors? When it was black and yellow top and compared to yellow and black top? Or was it just Thunder that went to City Council?
I think there might have been some discussion about Yellow Cab might perhaps having black bumpers. I think that's the only discussion there's been regarding that.
But from what I understand, that our approval of Thunder Cab went to City Council because of a color scheme issue. Then they approved the application that was enough to say it's different. Is that right? So what you're saying to us is, as long as we think that these different color schemes are different enough, is that what you're saying, ma'am?
Correct. If you think they're different enough that a reasonable person would not confuse the different companies. And
So therefore, let's take the two bottom ones. So not for you to tell me, I'm just saying, you take the two bottom ones, it's driving by, there's a problem, somebody calls in and says, the orange and red shuttle service, would they be able to determine which one shuttle service is what you're saying is their concern, compared to saying the black and the white shuttle service or something? Is that correct? Is that what you're...
I believe that's the concern of the ordinance. It's for the commission to decide whether they think that requirement is met.
Okay. All right.
And if you decide to approve, whether to approve or deny, I would make a specific finding in the motion to say we approve the application and we find that the color scheme is different so that a reasonable person would not confuse the different licensees.
And we would have to do that on, and we'd have to do that on each one of the four based upon the one we've already approved. Because we approved the one without a concern of color scheme.
Correct.
We would just have to say that for the next three.
Correct.
To say that.
I would make
okay,
that
would be
finding in the motion.
And so you would recommend that I modify the motion when it's time. Okay, thank you.
So we...
Commissioner Clayton. Commissioner Schuline. Commissioner Raymond. Commissioner May.
Are we going to maintain separate color schemes for each company or not? That's what the question is here, because if you're going to be looking at the airport shuttle and what have you, those companies don't have a different color scheme as far as I'm concerned. And they don't have a different, under the, was K, J and K, they don't have a different color scheme the way that they presented this, this crimson and whatever the two colors were. So the question comes down to, is that a requirement or isn't it? Because if you say it's a requirement for these folks, then you're going to have to go back to Airport Express and all and say, get your other colors. I know what you're saying there, but that's a modest change that isn't really that great. And you got another, if you pass that, you're still ignoring the thing on Airport Shuttle, because they're all colored the same way. So, I mean, the question is, are we going to stay consistent or aren't we? And I think the way to stay consistent on this is to say that any company held by a parent company can have the same color scheme. As soon as that sub-company is sold, then they have to come back here with a different color scheme within 30 days. It'd be the simplest way to handle it. These are parent companies. J and K is a parent company over the other four. So if you associating one color scheme with the parent company, they could have 10 companies. They got the same color scheme. The same thing you've got for the Airport Express. I'm assuming, maybe not rightfully so, but that you got a parent company over all four of those companies. That's not that way? Okay. You got the same telephone number on each one, so how are they operating independently when you've got one number to be called?
Please come to the podium to answer the question.
Commissioner May, first of all, Airport Express...
You address everybody here, so okay.
I understand. Airport Express and the four different shuttle companies that you see up there came into existence at different times, not all under one application. And I think I heard a comment that this was going to be one parent company and then four different companies underneath that are three different companies, and that's not accurate. It's one company operating four different DBAs, and that's not permitted under the Oklahoma Corporation Commission rules And so they're asking for a variance on that. Airport Express, Metro Express, Airport Shuttle, those are all different companies operating in compliance with all the rules of this commission and the OCC.
Then are you admitting to a violation of the guidelines because the different companies don't have different colors? Are you admitting to that?
No, sir.
You're not?
No, sir.
How do you explain it?
The request was made to the commission for the licenses at those different times in 95, 96, 98, 99, and the commission approved them. That's not a violation of the guidelines,
And
Commissioner.
all were colored blue?
Pardon?
And all were colored blue at the time?
It was all approved by this commission.
No, I'm asking a specific question. They were all blue at that time when they were approved, is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
You believe so? That's a cop-out, you know that. It either is or it wasn't.
Commissioner, if I may.
I'm real specific on this kind of stuff, because you have 4 separate companies operating one color, and that's in violation of the guidelines.
Please come to the podium and state your name and address, and I would ask that you fill out a blue form when you're done speaking.
I have.
Thank you.
My name is Larry Lucas. I live at 12700 North Council Road in Oklahoma City. I've been involved in ground transportation and all kinds of transportations for over 40 years. The 4 companies that were formed, I formed one of the companies in 1995. We specified 3 colors. Your records will show this. 3 colors, something like blue, yellow, white. The other companies were formed by the former owner of the taxi cab company, and he formed the same kind of colors, only his was gray and something else and blue. That's correct. And the other 2, and I bought that company. It has been a corporation for almost 15 years with separate tax returns. And the other 2 companies had the same kind of things that happened in 1997. Was formed by Dudley Tucker, a fellow, and he had 3 colors that he put up. That included yellow, white, blue. And the 4th company that we formed had the same kind of numbers. Now, I'll be happy to provide you with copies of what what that application said, and it met the standards at that time. And I don't know how many complaints the police department has had in the last 15 years about the issue of recognizability of our, quote, blue vans from the public. Can you comment on that? I don't think there's any question that our vans are distinctive in that they are blue vans, indeed. They also, though, met the requirements and have for the past 15 years, and the issue has never been raised until these gentlemen are trying to get by the OCC requirement that a corporate entity, JNK LLC, wants to do business as, they already have it from Thunder Cab from 8 years ago, and they have insurance for that. They have a $100,000 policy. The insurance company sends a Form E that guarantees the insurance policy and the amount that's shown for all the vehicles of that entity. And that entity, keep in mind, is this LLC DBA. The Corporation Commission does not allow you to have more than one DBA. You can only have the one. And the requirement for vehicles of 7 to 15 passengers, as stated by the manufacturer, is not $100,000. It's $1 million. And these guys have had the 30 days to accomplish getting that authority. Well, the thing that you don't know is that on the 3rd of March, before your 21st of March meeting, these guys went out to the Corporation Commission and found they couldn't do it that way. So they filed for a variance in the rules of the commission, asking for 2 things. Number 1, so that they could use DBAs. Now, that's been a long-standing rule at the Corporation Commission about the use of DBAs. It applies to motor trucks, buses, everything. So it's a long-standing thing. The second thing they want to do in this application, and we have copies of this variance, they want to reduce the insurance requirements. They're asking the Corporation Commission to exempt them to some extent or to modify their insurance coverage. Now, they didn't tell you that last March the 21st. They asked you all the questions. Some of you all raised that question. And the assurances here were, oh, we'll take care of it.
Mr. Lucas,
well, they haven't.
I'll
Thank you for your
give you
time.
15 more seconds.
No, I'm fine.
Thank you.
And I want to thank you for your clarification. But my concern is that under the guidelines they were operating under, that each company is supposed to have a distinctive coloring. And we find out there are 4 companies that don't have a distinctive coloring. And they've also got the same number to be called for purposes of securing their services. So, it appears under one circumstance that you've got a controlling corporation that's going to have 4 separate companies, wanting to have 4 separate companies, and you've got another one where you've got 4 separate companies being controlled by either one person or one operation, and operating as one. So we've got a variation on both of them, but are we going to, and that's the question, adhere to the fact that each company is supposed to have a distinctive coloring from another company? Not a distinctive coloring because this is our group of companies or our entities. That's what it comes down to. Are we going to pass on it, or are we going to say adhere to that particular rule? That's the bottom line, folks. Thank you.
Could we have any clarification from council on this? Is there anything to add?
Well, I don't know if you're talking about revocation proceedings for operating violation of ordinance, or...
Is there not a requirement for distinctive coloring? So the question is, legally, can we make an exception to that, or do we have to adhere to those guidelines? That's the guidelines that I was given, so I'm not, if they're not firm, then I'd like to know.
Well, those are the requirements of the article. If you feel that that there's a company that's not operating in compliance, then that would be up to the commission to address that. The application at hand is whether J&K Enterprises is going to have, if their vehicles will have color schemes that comply with the ordinance requirements. So,
color per company, a requirement. Distinctive coloring per company. Is it a requirement or isn't it?
there is a requirement in the ordinances. The ordinance requirement is that that.
It's right here, item D.
Correct. 56-24D.
Just thinking, especially in terms of complaints and the average consumer, I don't see that Tri-City Shuttle is going to look really distinctive from Oklahoma Shuttle. Maybe depending on which way I'm looking at it or something like that. So for me, that kind of leaves the question of what do we do about, I presume previous actions of this commission. And John, is that what you were asking? Is what do we have an ability to go back on previous actions of this commission?
Let's limit our discussion
It has nothing to do with
the item at hand, please.
Okay.
This has with J&K Enterprises. And are we accepting as a standard that shuttle has got to have a distinctive color from one company to another? And is that a standard?
Well, it seems to be in the
I think you said it is a standard. But I'm not putting words in your mouth. That's what I heard.
I think we should probably stick, if we want to put that on the agenda for future discussion, then we should do that. But for right now, we should stick to the requirements as they're currently written in the application that we're dealing with, since that's what's on the agenda.
So I have nothing to do with the other shuttle service.
That's not
We're talking about the J&K Enterprises.
That's correct. And ma'am, if you go to item D, as you refer to us, 5624D, whether applicant has a unique color scheme and/or trademark and/or different name, correct? So it's saying and/or. So it could be all three or it could be just one thing, correct? Like a name. If the name is different, that's enough to satisfy item D. Because we're using the and or. So whether applicant has a unique color scheme, let's say no, or trademark, no, because they're all kind of the same trademark, or name different from other motor vehicle for hire licensees. And they do have a name that's different. So in legalese, did I just interpret that correctly?
It's a little confusing the way it's written, I think. I think our main, Traffic Commission's main concern should be taking everything into account, the color scheme, the trademark name, or the name. Right. Taking all those into consideration, are they different enough that a reasonable person would not confuse the different companies or the different licensees?
So kind of throwing it out there, all three things, and then we do an evaluation based on the facts that are given to us. Okay? And then if I could just throw one more point out there. And sir, you know, just to go back to your point about them applying to the OCC, all we care about is eventually they come back with that sticker. That's because it comes through from them, from the cops that inspect the vehicles, they look for the sticker and they won't certify. As far as our approval goes, we go with saying you just need to have that to operate. They'll inspect that when they get there. And the same thing with the insurance coverage. They'll make sure they have the proper insurance. At the time of this application, those things are not done or don't have to be done. That was talked about at our taxi task force. So I just want to make sure that and it goes back to, again, item D that we already did approve. Those things don't apply right now. Those areas of concern will come about later. If he doesn't get the insurance that's required from OCC, then he can't operate. If he doesn't get their license, then he can't operate. And all we care about is that they get the license. So I'd like to restate my motion when it's appropriate, sir.
I have a comment. I have the same difficulty because when I read the ordinance, I think of this being distinct from another company, not a parent company. So if I look at this, I know it's a different company than from J&K. But all these with the same variation of the colors, I know are J&K. So, you know, if we move to discuss it further, I'm in agreement with that.
I would like for you to restate your motion, please.
So I'd like to make a motion that we approve item 8A from J&K Enterprise to approve Tri-City Shuttle with an understanding that this application does meet item code 5624 subsection D as being different than the application we just approved, item D.
Commissioner Martin?
Second.
I have a motion to approve item 8A with the stipulation for 5624-D and a second. Could I have your votes, please? Approved. Item 8B, The applicant is J&K Enterprises and Imports, LLC, 4345 Southwest 29th Street, Oklahoma City, 73119. The request is to consider an application from J&K Enterprises and Imports, LLC, doing business as Lightning Express, for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to operate 20 vehicles in shuttle service. I assume that this differs only in the
Only in the name,
request-
sir.
Only in the name request.
In
All of-
B and C, it's just the difference in the name
And
and the color scheme. Yes,
and the
sir.
color scheme that you
Yes,
have
sir.
presented for this particular vehicle.
Correct.
Would you like to add anything else to my restatement?
sir, I wouldn't.
Okay.
Why is it one of them is
What,
with,
just what, staff summary, please.
Okay, you've got our comments before you at this point in time. We just note that action on this matter is going to be at the discretion of the commission.
Do I have a motion?
I make a motion for approval of item 8B.
I second.
Further discussion? Commissioner Martin?
Yes, sir. Mr. Jaffer, why are some of them with 10 vehicles and some of them are with 20?
Well, so basically, we do not want to flood the airport. The need of the market right now is somewhere between 50 to 60 vehicles. We find that to be sufficient based on what the market needs are between Oklahoma City, Edmond, Norman area, including Midwest City, Del City. And as the need might increase, we'll increase the vehicles within these companies.
Further questions or comments? I have a motion by Commissioner Martin. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's see. Brooks Richardson, please.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I'm just coming forward to state our opposition on the record in case it's necessary and for a potential appeal. And also to ask the question, the statement was made, Commissioner Kula, that this commission's responsibility is not to consider the OCC and the insurance regulations and what the OCC does, but that they eventually have to do that. How long does this commission's authority to operate stay in existence when they're not operating because they haven't been given the proper authority from the other public entities?
Well, I think the Oklahoma City Police Department inspects the cabs prior to use, and they'll be looking for all of the items that require a sticker as such. And that cab or shuttle will not be placed into service until all of those requirements or stickers have been met.
So if the applicant cannot meet the OCC requirement, as we believe they won't be able to.
Here again, we make the requirement that they apply for the insurance or whatever it is that they're, and if that's not met, then that vehicle will not be placed in service.
Okay.
Is that a true statement, Commissioner Sergeant Caleb?
But, sir, what I think he's asking is, how long does this approval last for? Is it like forever and ever? It's always on the record as an approval?
I would defer to counsel on that.
Now, if they place vehicles in service without having the proper OCC permit or insurance, then they would, and our Oklahoma City decal, then they would then be operating in violation of our
No, what I think he's asking is, now that we've approved item D and item A, if they cannot get the insurance, cannot get OCC to give their license, how long is our approval valid for? 3 years from now, can they all of a sudden get it and go down and say, here's our shuttle? Is that what you're asking, sir?
Yes, not the scenario that they are in violation because they don't have the proper decal, but they never get to put the decal on a shuttle because they didn't get the authority from the other bodies.
So how long is this approval good for? Is it like a forever approval or until they withdraw?
I would have to, I'd have to do a little more research on it. I know the vehicles have to be inspected annually, and I believe that they also have to renew their business license. But I'll double check on that.
Okay, and that's a good, so what you're asking, I think, is now that we've approved it, if they can never get it done 6 months from now, a year from now, and they leave town, is this still here forever and ever, is what you're asking?
That's correct, Commissioner. It's my belief, my client's belief, that this commission will be asked to consider a revised application some months from now because the applicant who has gotten your approval won't be able to meet the other requirements and will have to come back and ask for something different. And I'm just wondering when that's going to happen.
Well, it's kind of a moot point, isn't it? If they can't put them in operation,
we have no way of knowing, but the vehicles will not be in operation until they are approved.
Thank you.
Mr. Nair?
I would like to put these nice gentlemen to ease. I've asked our operations manager just to be courteous and nice to them since they've been in operation for so long and they will see competition. I've asked my operations manager, we would have all our shuttles that are ready to operate with $1 million insurance on them in less than 25 minutes. I would have the certificate issued to us and I will fax that to their office within 30 minutes before this session is over. That'll be my present to you. That'll be my Easter present to you.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry. If you, Twyla, you've got it, okay. Yeah.
Hi, Tawana Valencia with A1 Taxi, 3511 Charleston Road, Norman, Oklahoma. And I just have a quick question. Mr. Najam said that he wants you to broaden your minds. He wants you to think that these are going to be all over Oklahoma. But he's not in Tulsa asking for a license, which is what he has to do to run it in Tulsa or Ardmore or wherever. He's asking Oklahoma City to license an abundance of companies all under one parent company. The airport has put a cutoff. They're not going to allow all this. I wonder in my mind what's going to happen when that comes down. Right now, downtown's overrun. What are we going to do with all these? That's just my question. Thank you.
Thank you, Twyla. Further comments, discussions? Commissioner Martin, would you restate your motion, please?
Yes, I make a motion for approval on item 8B with the stipulation of the variation in the color scheme as indicated with the photos submitted by the applicant. Yes.
Does your second still stand, Commissioner Jenkins? Further discussion? Can I have your votes, please? This item is approved. Item 8C, J&K Enterprises and Imports, LLC, 4345 Southwest 29th Street, Oklahoma City, 73119. The request is to consider an application from J&K Enterprises and Imports, LLC, doing business as Thunder Shuttle, for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to operate 10 vehicles in shuttle service. Mr. Nizam?
I don't have anything to say. I think all has been discussed. Our stand is the same.
Thank you. Staff summary, please.
You've got our comments before you. Action on this item, like the others, is at the discretion of the commission.
Do I have a motion? Do I have? Still on shuttles? Yes.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I have a motion by Commissioner Witcher,
I'll second.
second by Commissioner Schuline. Further discussion?
Mr. Najam, can you please, since there's been somewhat of an allegation that you would not be able to fulfill Section 56-24A, could you please just describe the taxi company that you've been operating in Oklahoma City and how they've done in the past year since they were licensed, just briefly?
Yeah, been operating Thunder Cab. We're now averaging about 75 to 80 cabs that are operating in Oklahoma City. I don't know how much the competition has. You have three main companies that are operating in Oklahoma City as of right now. You got Yellow Cab, Thunder Cab, and A1. Yellow Cab has been operating in Oklahoma City for nearly about 27 years, give or take. A1 has been operating for about 7 years. Yellow Cab was, I believe, about 230, 240 strong. Now they are about 130, I believe, registered. A1 has been operated for 7 years. They are still at about 12, 13 cabs in 7 years. Thunder Cab started last year in August. We are at about 75 plus minus and growing. By the end of the year, we'll be somewhere around 130 to 150 where we need to be. You've seen our progress, our company's progress, J&K's. So all these questions regarding indirectly, I think they are all focal. The focal point of that is the financial stability. Any person can look into that, whether we can get the insurance, whether we can get a company that's operating 80 plus cabs and has grown the company in 6 months to be there and growing aggressively, I think speaks for itself. We don't have to prove anything to anyone. Having financial stability to park vehicles outside is one thing, but putting qualified drivers into them for someone to drive them, that's what counts. And drivers are not bought. You can't buy drivers. You can't go outside and say, I'll pay you this much, come on, work for this company. The company has to be managed appropriately for those drivers to come join a company, just like any other company. The company has to have some credibility for people to join that company, to stay with that company, to be happy with that company. That's how companies grow. So I think we've amply proved ourselves where we are, where we want to be, and how we've grown. We have nothing else to prove to anyone but grow with our team, with our assets. And drivers are our asset. And we're very proud of it, that they are our biggest assets.
Thank you, Mr. Najam. Further discussion, comments? Mr. Brooks? I'm sorry, Mr. Richardson.
Commissioners, I wanted to put Airport Express's objection on the record and also to address the comments from the applicant and specifically to the question of compliance with 5624A. The history of Thunder Cab, which is a single DBA of J&K Enterprises, is not relevant to whether the other DBAs who are before you can meet the requirements of Ordinance 56 in the article. The requirements of Ordinance 56 require an investigation by the Commission into whether they can meet those requirements, whether these new DBAs can meet those requirements. We have discussed with you why they cannot, and the Commission has chosen to state that it's not the responsibility of the Commission to look into those things. And for that reason, that's why our objection is currently on the record. In terms of the applicant's statement about insurance coverage, we need to make the point that it's not getting a certificate of insurance. It's getting a Form E from the Oklahoma Corporation Commission. That is something they cannot do.
Further comments, discussion? Commissioner Witcher, would you restate your motion, please?
Make a motion that we approve item 8C for J&K Enterprises and Imports LLC to doing business as Thunder Shuttle to approve their application.
Commissioner Schuline's motion second stands. Could I have your votes, please? Item 8C is approved. We have already taken care of item 8D. We'll move on to item 8E. The applicant is J&K Enterprises and Imports, LLC, 4345 Southwest 29th Street, Oklahoma City, 73119. Consider an application from J&K Enterprises and Imports, LLC, doing business as Thunder Cab Tri-City, for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to operate 10 vehicles in taxi service. Mr. Nizam.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have the same stand. As we're growing, as the business needs are growing, from a management standpoint, as we explained earlier, different business needs require different business actions. We feel that's the need of the hour to diversify our companies, and as such, based on the airport, how the airport decisions are taken, we require that we open more cab companies and grow more cab companies. And thus we filed these applications. I see that the staff has some of the same concerns as they had with the shuttles. A is the color scheme. Again, if you look at the Article 56-22, it states in C, it states that the driver can move freely between licensed companies owned by the same licensee without the need to transfer his permit. This clearly shows that there is no need to be a rigid separation between the companies held by a single licensee. We feel that Thunder Cab is our recognition within the taxi companies. And in having so, we would like that to be our brand recognition. And in such, Thunder Cab is the name that we carry with the rest of the family companies. The rest of the name is different, unique, and separate from all other cab companies within Oklahoma City. It is different. It does not confuse with any other cab company that is operating within Oklahoma City. If you look at our one company, which is Thunder Cab Norman, in the package that is provided to you, you have the DBA papers that is provided to you, which is issued by the State Secretary's office. The state recognizes it as different, separate, unique, and thus the DBA has been issued. Again, all our companies carry a separate tax ID number and thus will carry a separate U.S. dot. The second concern that they had was the color scheme. Again, ladies and gentlemen, that is our brand recognition. It is unique from any other company that is operating in the city of Oklahoma City. Third concern that the staff had is cabs being ready for inspection. There seems to be a discrepancy. According to the ordinance, the Article 56, it was revised for the reason that the owners do not have to have vehicles ready for inspection at the time of the approval of the application. As the ordinance stands today, at the time of the inspection, which is when the vehicle comes to Sergeant McCaleb, the insurance verification has to be in hand. And the article was revised so that the owners do not have to incur in the entire cost of having the vehicle ready prior to even the application being approved. And then if something happens, a delay process, derailing process, this, that, the other, whatever have you, and then they find out, oops, we have all these vehicles ready, now what? What do we do with them? They're taxis. Meters installed, top lights installed, this, that. They're painted. And that is why it was revised. So the application states, in parentheses, the vehicle ready for inspection, although the ordinance states available for operation. We are a cab company with 80-plus vehicles operating, 10 to 15 at any given times in reserve to be ready in 2 days' notice. We spit out 5 to 10 vehicles a week. That is our growth plan within our company, J&K Enterprises Thunder Cab. We have filed in for 3 companies. Here are 15.
Mr. Najam, you have 30 seconds left.
Here are 15 titles of vehicles ready, available for cabs to be ready at any given time. For these 3 companies to be launched out at our will. So we are amply in full requirement of the Article 56 and able to launch our 3 companies, not with just 5 vehicles, but 15, 20, 30 vehicles at any given time, based on the business need and the market needs.
Thank you, Mr. Najam. Could I have staff summary, please?
Okay, you've got our reports before you. The applicant has indicated that they will be operating a taxi service and that they are requesting permits to operate 10 vehicles. The applicant did not provide any information with their application showing that they have available for operation at least 5 motor vehicles for hire. Since this information is missing, the applicant has not satisfied the criteria as set forth in 5624C. The applicant has indicated that the proposed taxi service will operate under the business name of Thunder Cab Tri-City. The applicant has indicated that their vehicles will bear a 2-tone yellow and black paint scheme with yellow lettering. Staff notes that J&K Enterprises and Imports LLC has filed a total of 3 taxi service company applications, and all are being considered at this meeting. The vehicle color scheme proposed for all 3 companies is identical to an existing company, Thunder Cab, which is not in compliance with the criteria set forth in 5624D. The name proposed is similar to that of an existing taxi service. The applicant has met all the requirements of 5623 and 5624 with the exceptions of the requirements in 5624 sections C and D. Unless the applicant provides specific information on at least 5 vehicles required to demonstrate that the applicant has 5 motor vehicles available to start this taxi service and amends the taxi service name and vehicle color scheme, staff cannot recommend approval of the application from J&K Enterprises and Imports for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to operate 10 vehicles in taxi service under the business name of Thunder Cab Tri-City. So action on this matter is at the discretion of the Commission.
Do I have a motion? Do I have a motion on item 8E?
Well, regarding staff's recommendation, I am inclined to deny the application 8E.
Is that your motion? I second it.
I have a motion to deny item 8E based on staff's recommendations by Commissioner Martin, seconded by Commissioner May. Further discussion?
Yes, sir. I'd like to ask, just in general, and I know we're talking about only this one new taxi cab company, but in the other 2 that are going to come up right next, do they all have the same dispatch office?
Yes, sir.
Same number?
Yes, sir.
And my final question is, will every company, once it's up and running, with 5 cabs, have 24/7 coverage
Yes,
per
sir.
company?
Yes, sir.
Not just your enterprise total?
No, they will all have 24/7, 365.
So if we were to approve item A, item E, F, and G, the 3 next ones,
Yes, sir.
along with the one you currently have, Thunder,
Yes, sir.
2 o'clock in the morning, there's no cab being used or all in service, you'd have one from each company at least available for dispatch throughout the whole city.
They will be available, yes, sir.
Okay.
Roger Andrews.
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay. I just wanted clarification
Yes, ma'am.
as to the area covered by Tri-City.
Ma'am, all cab companies will cover all of Oklahoma City except Norman till the time that we get the licenses for Norman. Norman is the only city where you have to get special licenses. So as each company keeps getting the licenses, get their inspections done, apart from Norman, everything else will be covered, Yukon, Edmond, Del City, Midwest City, just like Thunder Cab does. For Norman, the vehicles have to go get inspected over there. The drivers have to go get an additional Norman taxi permit done, and then we can operate. Get the Norman insurances done, which are different than Oklahoma City insurance, and then as that is done, then we operate. So each company vehicles, as they get that process completed, they will be operating in Norman. Other than that,
So Tri-City does not refer to a geographical area?
no, ma'am, it's just a name. It is just a name. None of these, as far as the geographics done, we cover all of Oklahoma City from Choctaw to Yukon. Call comes, we go, period. Cab is dispatched. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you. Roger Andrews.
Mr. Chairman, Roger Andrews with Yellow Cab Company. I believe I gave my address earlier. To answer the Commissioner's question about why would somebody form all these different taxi cab companies, we had a meeting at the airport approximately 3 weeks ago, and we've had a public safety issue at the airport and downtown Oklahoma City. And the airport director, after a number of meetings with a number of people, decided that he would give each company, there's 3 taxi cab companies right now serving Oklahoma City, each company would have a spot on what we call the money line, the ready line. So Yellow Cab would have 2 spots, Thunder Cab would have 2 spots, and A1 would have 2 spots. Now, people that come out, for instance, the last 8 months, a lot of our charge customers came out, a lot of our friends and family came out, and just people that have ridden with us for years, and there weren't any yellow cabs on the line because we were crowded out. Thunder put all their cabs out at the airport. The airport director thought the best thing to do is to give each company a slot so they have representation, especially since, for instance, if somebody wanted to save a little money, they'd want to get in a yellow cab, okay? So it gives everybody options. Well, Mr. Najim promised, the airport director, actually sounded more like a threat to me, but he said that if you do this, I'm going to open up these number of additional taxi cab companies so that I can have more than one spot. So he's not satisfied to have the same as everyone else. He wants additional spots. So now, if things continue the same, he'll have 4 spots, we'll have 1 spot, A1 will have 1 spot. There's limited parking out at the airport, just like there's limited parking downtown. And when you flood an area like that, it just doesn't give people a choice, and there's just no room. And I would suggest that, like we had the meetings a year and a half ago, that we take the time a couple weeks from now and have a transportation committee meeting like we did before and discuss the taxi cab matters and have a representative from the airport and let them indicate to the commissioners, the people on the subcommittee, why he's doing it this way, because there is a reason. And like I say, public safety is involved both at the airport and downtown. And There's some other reasons why a cab company will form an additional 3 or 4 companies, which I really don't want to discuss at this forum, but I will bring some facts, historically what's happened in the last 15, 20 years in the taxi cab industry across the United States, and we can have that discussion at that time.
Thank you, Mr. Andrews.
Thank you.
Mr. Andrews?
Yes.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what is the public safety issue? I understand, slots in the money line, but what's a public safety issue? Just a lot of traffic?
When you crowd an area with taxi cabs, sometimes, especially this summer, people tend to lose their manners when it gets hot outside. You have parking issues out on the queue. There's really not enough. There has not been, for the last 8 months, enough parking space out at the airport. Same thing goes for downtown Oklahoma City. Thank you.
Mr. Richardson?
Thank you for recognizing me once again. Commissioners, we object to the application for many of the same reasons that we've already discussed with respect to the shuttle applications. I do want to expound a little bit upon the different companies aspect, which is both a problem for the shuttle applicants and also for the taxi cab applicants. This is really about gaming the system. As the applicant mentioned, there are 4 different bodies who have to govern this process: you and the Airport Trust and the Oklahoma Corporation Commission. And what you've got is the bodies who sometimes don't know everything that's going on. Everything that one body has done, another body doesn't quite know. And so what we have is, with these different companies that are, or different DBAs, they're not different companies, they're different DBAs, and that's a very important distinction. That a good example of what happens is what happened on March 22nd, when the applicant, after having received this commission's approval on March 21st for Oklahoma Shuttle, took a motor carrier, interstate motor carrier application form to the Oklahoma City Licensing Department and got a license for 5 vehicles, and then went to the police inspector and asked him for, gave him the Oklahoma City license and asked him for, said that he had complied with the insurance regulations and the OCC authority, and gave him stamps from Thundercab. And so the Oklahoma City police inspector, believing that everything had been, was represented correctly, then provided the authority for Oklahoma Shuttle to begin operating, when in fact that authority had not been given yet. They did not comply with the OCC requirements. And that's the kind of thing, that's the kind of problem that is being created through these creations of multiple DBAs, where the applicant can try to game the system, both at the airport and with this commission and with the Oklahoma City licensing authority. For those reasons, and because we believe that a thorough inspection, investigation of the applicant's ability to comply with the requirements of the article have not yet been met, we would oppose the application and support the motion to deny the application.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson. Please come forward.
Hi, Tawana Valencia, 3511 Charleston Road, Norman, Oklahoma. I was sick over the weekend, and this is going to be kind of funny, but it was actually Mr. Najam's drivers that notified me of this meeting, because he has informed them that he will be pulling those drivers will be the ones getting those spots, not that he's bringing new drivers on. And they don't trust him. They want me to find out, is that true? Or is he going to bring on new drivers, or is he going to use the same drivers that he has, which is a big question here. Right now, we have drivers that are, they're fighting out there, just like with downtown taxi meters. Mr. Najam has informed his drivers to park there and put money in because there's nothing the city can do to stop them. I don't believe that. I believe if it's an issue, then it needs to be stopped, period. Okay, because we all have to work together here. to reach our goal, the goal that Taxi Task Force set out. Mr. Najam, so to speak, a nip was put in his rear end with the airport. He's overflooded it. None of his drivers are making money. Nobody's drivers are making money. I have 11 airport stickers. I have told his drivers I will not put on more than 21. That's it, because I don't want to make the same mistakes that he's made. Drivers have to be able to make money. They have to be able to service people, and they need to be of a certain caliber to do that. Okay, you can't have someone with do-rags and the pants down to their knees out there picking up a businessman at the airport. That puts a bad reputation on Oklahoma City. We want to show people that Oklahoma City is a great place to come visit. We want you here. We want to service you. We want to make your visit great. They're not, I've already had word from the airport, because I checked with them this morning. They're not going to allow this to happen. They know it's under one company. One company is one company. Regardless of how many DBAs you have, you're still under one company. I ask you to do the same, to see through this and to put a stop to what he's trying to do. Thank you.
Sir, if I could ask staff, as far as the requirement of the 5 vehicles, to show 5 vehicles, when does he have to provide that to be able to reapply, or does he just bring the forms to you and just show you the 5 vehicles? Or because that was one of your recommendations of a concern, is that right, sir?
Well, the way the ordinance is written, in order for a taxi company, the only vehicle for hire type that requires proof that you've got 5 vehicles to start a service is a taxi service. Mm-hmm. And with this application, we've only been requested to provide, I believe it's 10 permits initially to start this company, but we have got no indication from the applicant as to what vehicles he has available in order to initiate operations. I think the intent was to make sure that the city, that a company starting a taxi business could start out with a minimum number of cabs in order to have coverage available 24 hours a day.
Right. So if this gets disapproved, for him to reapply, all he would have to show you are the 5 vehicles that he would use?
Right, in addition to the other items that we've highlighted as being...
Which was the color scheme.
Inconsistencies.
Right. Okay, thank you.
I'll just say that it's not the ordinance, the titles for the vehicles are not required to be submitted to the Traffic Commission. That is one of the things that the Vehicle for Hire Inspector collects at the time the vehicles are inspected. All that the ordinance requires is that the Traffic Commission is satisfied that as of the date of his application, as of today, that he has available for operation at least 5 motor vehicles for hire. So you might want to...
So if he was to stand up there and show us 5, then the staff concern is no longer there, is what you're saying, ma'am?
If Traffic Commission, if Commission is satisfied that he has 5 vehicles ready for operation today, then...
Well, not all painted, not ready to go. Or are you saying ready to go with name, mobile radio in it?
It says available for operation.
So you'd expect that any difference in color scheme that you want to have occur would also, you'd have to have that in place before it's ready for operation.
Right, and one of the requirements is a unique color scheme. So if the Commission isn't satisfied that a unique color scheme is present, then they would need to deny the application on that basis.
Further discussion amongst the commissioners? Mr. Nizam?
If at this point for the approval, the only concern that the commission has is the color scheming, then within the companies, the families of the companies, we are willing to change the color schemings for our 3 new companies. We're willing to give you the color scheming right now if the companies can be voted upon and approved. If that is the only concern left, I believe that we have fulfilled all the other requirements for our 3 cab companies. As far as the availability of the vehicles, they are available. So if the concern is only the color scheming, our pattern, our design of J&K Enterprises Thundercab is there. We have our mother company, the Thundercab, with the yellow stripe, with the black sidings. We are willing to change Tri-City as orange. We are willing to change the airport cabs with silver on the top, hood and the trunk, just like the same pattern as, and we're willing to change the Norman with crimson.
Mr. Zhezing, we appreciate your willingness to work with us, but all these crazy colors, okay? I mean, the intent is to differentiate between companies.
Yes, sir.
Not meld them into one. I mean, with a little here, you know, hood orange, top red, and I mean, in my mind, and I would suspect Sergeant McCaleb's mind, is that an individual has a complaint, they want to know which company it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you're the different, you know, just the color scheme itself is not good enough. I mean, I think actually the black and yellow combination that Thundercab, I mean, has now is sort of borderline, you know, between Yellow Cab, A1 is really kind of a combination, honest, if you want to be honest about it. So now you're telling us you still want the black and yellow combination, but you're going to change it in places?
Well, a vehicle that is black on the side and orange on the hood, roof, and the trunk, I believe is very, very different than any other vehicle.
Well, then the Thundercab is yellow.
Thundercab is yellow, yes.
You're putting orange on the hood.
Orange
most people don't see the hood unless they're real close to it. I mean, if it's just driving by, you know, if it's driving irrationally, let's say, or it cuts somebody off, you're not going to be able to see the hood, the top color of the vehicle.
It's, well, sir, with due respect, it's very visible. We're talking about a vehicle. The hood is a Crown Victoria or a Dodge Caravan or a Honda Odyssey. There's a width over here, whole hood, whole roof, a whole trunk.
Now, silver.
In a van is a whole back. We're talking about bright orange, OSU, Oklahoma State orange. We're talking about silver. We're talking about OU crimson. These colors stand out. These are bright colors that actually, there's no way that you can confuse them with like, oh, I didn't see the orange. These actually strike you, in my opinion. We can. I'll leave it at this. Just like when we were launching Thundercab, I left it at the council. Pick a color.
We're not here to play color scheme games.
As long as we would like to keep the stripe.
You tell us what you want, what you're proposing.
These are the colors we
approve or disapprove.
These are the colors we propose. We would like the Tri-City to be orange, OSU, which is bright orange. We would like the airport to be silver, because at the airport we'd like it to be a little more elegant, a little more sophisticated because of the clientele. And then in Norman we'd like to be crimson. That's the college color. But we feel very strongly these are distinctive color. You cannot confuse them with yellow or silver with orange. That's what we feel.
Mr. Najam, if you weren't to change the colors of these cabs, you wouldn't be able to get the additional slots out at the airport. Is that correct?
We will be, sir. These are going to be launched out as separate companies. We will have to get separate insurances on that. At the airport, they will have separate insurances, separate U.S. dots, separate business licenses.
But that's the sole purpose for for asking for 3 different companies
For right now, yes, sir.
is so that you can have additional
For right
spaces
now,
at
and
the
then
airport.
that's
Is that
the
correct?
direction we're going to grow, and then,
Let me, is that the purpose for your asking for 3 different companies?
yes, sir.
Is to gain 6 more slots
That and
at the
then-
airport?
That, and then we specialize the cabbing, make different price ranges on that, and then as we grow, some are going to cater for just certain clientele, some are going to cater for some certain clientele, some are just going to operate in Norman, some are going to just operate maybe at the airport, and we just diversify and bring new things within the industry. I don't believe that cabbing just needs to run in the same manner that it has been running for the last 20, 27 years by one company orchestrating which direction it's going to go.
But my question is, this is only an issue at the airport. With regards to the rest of the city,
As it seems to be right now,
it's a non-issue.
yes.
Is that correct?
As it seems to be right now, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Further discussion? Questions?
Well, my motion still stands for denial. But, well, I mean, on the basis of the requirements are not properly met for the titles, and the differentiation of the color, I'm confused, I don't understand anymore. I'm sorry.
Well, and I second that, but I'll be quite candid. The key is that there's 4 separate, 3 separate, 4 separate companies, however you want, because Thunder Cab's already out there, they're looking for 3 more. That's 4 separate companies, all with the name Thunder something or another, and that's confusing to people. They're going to see it, and that's what we're trying to stay away from. You know, we said that at the beginning. You know, we don't need the same name out there. That's why they got different names on the cabs. We don't need the same colors, so people can differentiate between companies. And this is just flying in the face of that, as far as I'm concerned.
I have a motion by Commissioner Martin to deny 8E, seconded by Commissioner May. Could I have your votes, please? I'm sorry. The motion is to deny. It's approved unanimously, to deny. Item 8F, J&K Enterprises and Imports LLC, 4345 Southwest 29th Street, Oklahoma City, 73119. Consider an application from J&K Enterprises Imports LLC, doing business as Thunder Cab Airport, for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to operate 10 vehicles in taxi service. Mr. Najam?
So we have the same stance, sir. I believe the concerns are the same on the color scheming.
Okay.
I make a motion to deny.
Let me have staff's recommendation first.
Okay. This item is essentially identical to the one you just heard. Staff's concerns are the same, and at this point in time, we cannot recommend approval unless some of the items that need to be cleared up are rectified. Action will be at the discretion of the commission.
Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to deny.
Okay. I have a motion by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Clayton, to deny item 8F. Further discussion?
I'd like to clarify that there's more than just a color scheme. There's the showing that there's vehicles ready to go into service is also part of staff's.
Yes, sir. On the application, it says ready for inspection, although the ordinance says available for operation, which means that basically the way we understand it, and it has been always, that you have the potential to be available at the time when you go to Sergeant McCaleb. They are ready. Just last month, we approved a cab company, Castle, I believe, And we have the titles available for all 15 cabs to get them ready. We have AD running in Oklahoma City. So I don't think there's any doubt in anyone's mind for us to have the vehicles ready and available to bring them to Sergeant McCaleb for inspection. I feel that approval or denial is now standing at the point of color scheming. Am I correct?
And also engage spaces.
And the name. And the name.
Based on this application, that's all we can talk about.
Right.
Okay.
So right now we've got two concerns, the name and the color scheming. The color scheming, we have agreed. We propose black and silver, black and crimson, black and orange, which we feel that they are very unique, different. I don't know if that is still a concern. I'm not clear on that. Is that still a concern? Black and orange, bright orange, a vehicle that is black and orange. Can we have an orange shuttle out over there? So if we can envision a black and orange right there, is that a concern still?
I think that making your proposal in a revised or updated application, probably, I would guess that's a more appropriate course of action.
Well, from a staff perspective, it would be, because by the time the commission acts on this, we can send discrete information up to the supervisor of licenses so they know that'll get passed on to the police department so that they know when a vehicle comes in, it should say, like, have black sides with silver hood, trunk, and roof, or something along that line. Right now,
the reason why I'm mentioning that is because every time we go back and forth on that is there's a wait time for between all this of 30 days. Within the business, from all angles, that 30-day is tremendously costly within the facet of operation, not just monetarily, but as far as drivers losing, gaining drivers, how the different facets of operation within this industry works.
We appreciate that, but we can only act upon what you present before us.
I totally understand. So all I'm trying is that if these are the concerns, and if we can, I'm standing right here, and if we can work it out, and I say, okay, fine, this is not a big issue for us, we'll change it. We can change it right now, and if that can be approved upon, or tell us the concern, and then...
Well, as with the earlier application,
yes, sir.
I was okay with the new paint scheme, okay with the 5 vehicles, here's our vehicles, and I don't think our intent was they had to be ready to go up and running, but the names is what swayed me, that they were too similar. So my personal opinion of this is the names of these 3.
Okay.
And I think you even said it earlier in some of your comments that you did that on purpose to be part of the family.
Right.
And that, I think, swayed me on the early one in this issue.
Okay.
So that's my personal opinion on that.
We have a motion to deny. Yeah. Okay, we have a motion to deny.
Sorry,
I'm
could you specifically state the basis, just for the record, of your motion for denial?
Please state your reason
for the
for
record.
denial.
The reason for denial on my part was that the companies all have similar names, and we had said in the fact-finding information and the things that came out with rulings was that we wanted a distinctive name and distinctive colors so that people could recognize who they are.
Okay.
It violates both of those.
Okay. And we have a motion to deny item 8F based on the grounds that Commissioner May just mentioned, and we have a second by Commissioner Clayton. Could I have your vote? This is a motion to deny. Could I have your votes, please? It is unanimous. Thank you. Item 8G, J&K Enterprises and Imports, LLC, 4345 Southwest 29th Street, Oklahoma City, 73119. Consider an application from J&K Enterprises and Imports, LLC, doing business as Thunder Cab Norman, for a certificate of public convenience and necessity to operate 10 vehicles in taxi service. Mr. Najam?
Well, I guess we're clear on two of the concerns, which probably would be the same. I just want to be very clear, is the third concern, where are we on the discrepancy? Does the vehicle have to be ready for inspection at this point?
It's not like you haven't done this before.
We have, and this is what it is. We did not need. We didn't even need to bring the titles of the vehicle. And now I'm confused. The application says ready for inspection, ordinance says available for operation.
Actually, usually during the submission, we see the titles to the vehicles.
Okay. Because on the application...
I don't know that that's a requirement, but
because
there are
on the
sometimes
application,
present.
if you look at it, it says in parentheses, ready for inspection. On top of it, it says number of vehicles. At the bottom, the second question is vehicles listed. There is no request for listing. I think I've got that question. So it says manufacturers rated seating capacity vehicles listed. There's no listing. There is no listing asked for. On top of it, number of vehicles to be operated under this license. For all taxi companies, the applicant must have at least 5 motor vehicles ready for inspection. The Ordinance 56 states available for operation, which means...
Then that's exactly what must be.
Which,
Well, no, what I think he's saying, sir, is the application as he circled, I just had it here, I'm sorry. The application as he circles says ready for inspection. That's on the application that's drawn up by the city. But the code says whether applicant has available for operation at least 5 vehicles for hire.
So it should say operation/inspection or inspection/operation?
Well, ready for inspection means that they've now gone and got insurance, they got their old CCC stuff, all that kind of stuff. They've painted, they've got all their decals on, and they go and they get inspected. So to me, being inspected is the final ready to go. Where they come to us, they just need to have 5 vehicles available. Okay. And I think that's the intent of the code is that they have 5 vehicles that they can go and get ready for inspection. Okay. So the application may be of concern that the staff may just want to look at that word. You know, the applicant must have 5 motor vehicles ready for inspection. Well, not when they come to us, I don't think. Right, that they have to give us 5 vehicles that are available for operation. You know, they just aren't painted, they got 4 wheels, and they're ready for operation.
on the prior application, we used to submit 5 titles.
Right.
That's all we did.
Right, that's what I'm saying. So I'm saying that we probably need to look at that and make sure that this word is correct and not say inspection.
But it asked, the earlier application asked for 5 titles.
Mm-hmm.
This application does not.
No, that's a good point.
So we just brought them along. And that's where the confusion is on that piece.
Could we have staff summary, please?
This item is it's identical to the previous 2. We've got all the same concerns. Action on this matter is going to be at the discretion of the commission again.
Do I have a motion?
I'll recommend denial.
I will second.
I have a motion by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Witcher, to deny item 8G. Further discussion, comments? Did anyone else filling out a blue form wish to speak on this? You have listed items 8A through G. I'll give you this opportunity. Mr. Richardson?
Commissioner, we just wanted to put on the record our objection to the application support for the motion that's currently pending. This discussion of available for inspection, available for operation, I think if you read those 2 things separately, then you can create problems down the road. Somebody in this particular situation, and I think it's a very realistic situation, that has 5 vehicles, and the purpose of the ordinance is to make sure that your applicants have 5 vehicles that they can put out on the road as soon as they're inspected. They can have 5 vehicles now, you approve it, and then because they can't meet all their other requirements, then 4 months down the road, when they maybe can finally get their requirements met, they no longer have 5 vehicles ready, and they just submit 2 for inspection, and they've already gotten your approval. So I believe that the issue of request for inspection, the availability of inspection, needs to be concurrent with the available for operation. But we certainly object to the application and support the motion that's currently pending.
Sir, just a point, just so make it clear, a year and a half ago when we had our task force, one of the things we talked about was we don't want to put an undue burden on the new applicants to spend a lot of money paying the OCC, the insurance, before they even come to us and say, we'd like to do business. And that was a true conscious thought on our part to say, come to us with your thought, with what you want to do, tell us you have at least 5, show us you have at least 5 vehicles, and we say yes, and then you go through the other steps, and then you go get it inspected, and then you go to work. And of course, you have to go through them steps to get through the final phase. So, and I think that the code says it that way. I think the application just added the inspection word accidentally. And that's where I'm going. Just wanted to clear that up. That was the intent of the task force, was to get people to come in, get some businesses going, and then once they get approval, then they go get inspected, and they go out to the field.
Thank you, Commissioner. And I think the task force certainly had the right intent, but sometimes even the best intentions can go awry. And by the system that's been created, what is happening is you have applicants who are now able to say one thing to you and one thing to someone else and another thing to someone else. And when it finally all comes together, your 5 vehicles that are supposed to be available for operation may not be submitted for inspection. And so I think it's something that the Commission ought to consider, even though the task force recommendation had the good intentions. This application should be denied, and available for inspection when the application is resubmitted, available for inspection should still be there as part of the requirement of available for operation.
Thank you, Mr. Richardson.
Okay. I
just have...
Did you have a question of Mr. Richardson?
No.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Again, I have a concern about the name.
Yes,
when you say Thunder Norman, I think I'm a reasonable person.
Yes, ma'am.
And my mind goes to a service that's going to Norman.
Yes, ma'am.
And I just question...
Your mind is going absolutely right. If you look at the DBA date, Thunder Norman, that DBA is open. That's going to operate only in Norman.
Okay.
That is for Norman market only. Like I mentioned before, Norman operates within the city, within the state, just like a separate city. It is special.
Okay.
We have to get special licenses. Drivers have to get an extra license. Any driver that's operating in Norman will carry 2 permits, one for City of Oklahoma City, one for City of Norman. The vehicle gets inspected twice, once in Norman, once in Oklahoma City by Sergeant McCaleb. So Norman operates entirely different.
So that means that you can have a fare that originates in Norman and comes to Oklahoma City and vice versa?
Yes, sir.
And you can't do that unless you're inspected by Norman, is that correct?
Absolutely, sir. But you can do that in Edmond. You can do that in Yukon. You can do that in Midwest City, Del City.
Just
not in Norman. Okay. Norman is Norman.
Thank you.
Okay. Then I had one other question.
Yes.
You presented this additional information, but you have different addresses on your application for Norman than on your trade name report.
Ma'am, our attorney filed that DBA, and he had my home address.
Okay.
He put that out on that rather than my office address. I would just like for 2 minutes, because this gentleman has been coming back chiming the same thing, and he's so keen on OCC, on the corporation, Oklahoma Corporation Commission. Oklahoma Corporation Commission issues U.S. DOT. We are the only state that requires passenger cabs to put U.S. DOT. U.S. DOT predominantly is for trucking, freight. When you cross state lines and you go to the weigh stations and all, Even global insurance companies are baffled why Oklahoma has on taxis U.S. DOT. Why are we requiring U.S. DOT? And he's been chiming in again and again. They've been playing this game for the last 1 month. I'll be nice enough over here after we've told them 10 times that you can't purchase a vehicle at a laundry shop. It just doesn't work that way. Our nation hasn't come, we haven't become China, that you go to one place and they say, no problem, come on. So here's their U.S. DOT history. There are 4 companies. As per law, we are registered in city of Oklahoma City. That U.S. DOT allows us two things to do: to be intrastate within Oklahoma. Our vehicles can go from Oklahoma City to Lawton, to Ada, Ardmore, that is, go from here to Nichols Hills, Bethany, War Acres, or go interstate, here to Texas, Arkansas. This is their history. 4 companies. They're issued 4 different U.S. DOTs. They've got 1 company they're using 3 different U.S. DOT on the same company. And then again, you have 3 different companies. They've got the same U.S. DOT on 3 different U.S. company. They're only allowed any of our transport companies. We are registered in Oklahoma City. We cannot even pick up passengers in Lawton, Oklahoma. We're not registered there. They're picking up passengers in Wichita Falls, Texas. Not only that, please look at the copy of the receipt. They haven't even decided since 1987 whether they're a shuttle or a taxi. And they want to come up over here, have the audacity to tell you all how OCC works.
Thank you, Mr. Najam. Mr. Lucas, did you have anything to add?
Pardon me. I can't hear too well. Thank you. I don't know what the material is. May I see a copy of it?
Mr. Lucas, if you'd like a few moments to review that, then I'll ask someone else to.
State of Oklahoma, through its state laws, gives the authority to the Oklahoma Corporation Commission to determine all intrastate moves. That's from Lawton to Oklahoma City. Interstate is when you go from Oklahoma City to Dallas. The interstate authority used to be controlled by the ICC, and in approximately 1987, federal government decided they were no longer going to force you to have hearings, establishing need, financial capacity, and that kind of thing. So they set up something called the U.S. Motor Safety Carrier Department. And that department now, for the federal government, only deals with interstate travel. But it covers, again, the full range of freight folks and all of that. They then set up a system called an identification system called the U.S. DOT system, and they made arrangements, for example, with the state of Oklahoma, that any carrier who went to the Corporation Commission and got intrastate authority was required to have a U.S. DOT application. Now, I suspect what these fellows are showing you is what they showed at the Appeals Review Board, a U.S. DOT number that they've got, which you can just fill in the blanks, you apply for it, and automatically it comes back over the internet the way you described it. Now, what they didn't tell you, which was discussed at the Appeal Board, is that when you go in and research this site that the government has, that it describes in great detail the history of the company as far as what the U.S. government knows, their level of insurance, and whether the application is still in place. Well, if you go to that website as we do, you will find that for passenger service you need $1,500,000 on file with the federal government to do interstate transport. And you'll further learn that the DOT number that they're talking about has now been abandoned for failure to perform the requirements of keeping that number in place. So, I mean, it's just this idea that they cook up, that has a meaningful effect on their application. It's the Oklahoma Corporation Commission that gives you authority to go from Oklahoma City to Lawton. We have held that authority, as I say, for 15 years, and all I can say is we have a very good record in dealing with the Corporation Commission.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Roger Andrews. I think he's gone. Gone. Twyla, do you have anything to add?
Chairman, I've had several things just kind of handed to me directly. Should these go to Cherry and become part of the record, or handed back to?
Yes, all of that. After you finish looking at it, then I need to have that on the record.
I'm not sure how germane it is to what we're voting on.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Hi, Tawana Valencia. My question still remains the same. He's saying these are going to be in Tulsa, Ardmore, Norman. They all have their own individual licensing procedure. Why is he asking you for a license for Norman? They have their own. You can't give him a license for Norman. Why is he, this is what I'm saying. Like Ms. Jennings said, or Jenkins, I'm sorry, that tells me this cab is going to Norman. It's not Oklahoma City, it's a Norman-based cab. So, we got to keep in mind that we're not Tulsa, we're not Ardmore, we're not Norman, we're not anything but Oklahoma City. And the strive has to be to maintain Oklahoma City, not to just make sure the airport's got 50 million cabs, but to make sure this city, just as I have to service the whole of Oklahoma City, okay, he has stood up here and said straight out, I want these for the airport. Not to service the city and its residents, but for the airport. He stated that out of his own mouth. And as far as I know, that is way against the rules, because I almost had my license jerked for it. Thank you.
Okay, if you have filled out a blue sheet? Okay, thank you. Sadek Halabai, if you'll come to the podium, please, and state your name and address.
My name is Sadek Halabi, and I'm at 4008 Catamaran Drive, Yukon, Oklahoma, 73099. I'm a cab driver for Tender Cab. The first of my concerns, if we go back to the shuttle, even though it has nothing to do with me, when the customer showed up out of the airport, they know the blue. They don't know express shuttle or non-shuttle. They don't know how much you pay in insurance or how much you can afford. If you go to a car dealer and you buy a car, they don't ask you if you're going to be able to afford the insurance or not. You go and shop for it and then come back and get it if you want to drive the car in the city of Oklahoma City. That's one of the concerns. The second one, it's about the cab business. When I worked in LA in 2008, cabs can operate in West Hollywood and in LA as a city. In order for them to operate in West Hollywood, they have to ask LA for a license to operate in LA. And then they ask LA for an authorization to go and operate parallel at West Hollywood. So they have the same car that operate here and there with two licenses. The car is licensed by LA and licensed by West Hollywood, and the driver have a permit from LA and a permit from West Hollywood. Then when it comes to the 3 extra companies that Jafar asked for. We're doing that not because we want more names or more cars or more colors. It just things changed on us as it's been since 2006. Regulations and rules change every day without putting in consent. Is that harming the driver? Is it helping the driver? How it is helping the driver? How it is harming the driver? We are the main thing here. We pay the company, we pay the city, we pay gas, we pay car. We should be the center of attention of everything. This company up here, it's not a company, Jafar's company. It's a driver's company. We're the one that asked him to open it because we were tired of being overcharged. Nobody cares if we work and have money or not. We have to pay the tariff at the end of the week. That's how it was since I got to this business. And we said no. That's the end of it. Now at the airport, they expect a company with 32 cars to actually lined up with 2 spots. Times that the company that have 6 cars have 2 spots, and company that have 7 cars have 2 spots. Maybe that make sense to the director of the airport, which is a different issue, and we're going to take it with him, but it doesn't to me. When I sit there for 3 hours, and I know that I have to pay for a license, I have to pay for a sticker to the airport, I have to pay for my permit, I have to pay for my inspection to the city, I have to go and get calls from all over the place. I drive 12 miles to get a call for $4, which is a part of what I signed up for. And that's what we're doing that. And again, taxis or vans, it doesn't matter what color you are. It's how much you charge. Tender cab with different colors, different name, people we know that they're getting charged $25 to get to downtown. If they get in the blue van or get in another van, they know with the blue van they're charged $20 to get to downtown. With this van, they will be charged $16 to get to downtown. And thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Albee. Further discussion, questions? I have a motion by Commissioner May, seconded by Commissioner Witcher, to deny 4G. May I have your votes, please? Denied unanimously. Thank you. We'll go back to Section 6 now, comments from citizens. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak? Yes, you did, Mr. Lucas, if you'll come up and... Please wait till you get to the...
My name is Larry Lucas. I live at 12700 North Council Road. Our attorney, Kelly Work, who appeared before you, his father is gravely ill, Jim Work, a guy who's done a lot of, is well known here in Oklahoma City, and he called me at 10:30 this morning and indicated he was just unable to attend. Brooks Richardson agreed to come over and face you today, and I'm very grateful to him. Second thing is, I want to comment, Captain, on what a good job Sergeant McCaleb does and Lieutenant Macy. Lots of stuff is on his shoulders, lots of stuff that we don't know about. Our company has 65 drivers, independent contractors, probably 20 people in the office. We have 5,000 riders, customers, in our database with their phone numbers, home addresses. 20 years of building that success. They're also involved in this application. And I'm very proud of what Airport Express has done. It may have been, I'm not familiar exactly what happened, and I may have misinformed Brooks about the application these folks submitted indicating that they had authority to operate as a shuttle service, but it came as quite a surprise to many of us. I think it's been expressed here with the council members, several of them, the laws of unintended consequences. 1989, the council changed the taxicab ordinances when Ron Norick was mayor. And after a year or two, we had to make some adjustments, we being the industry, meeting with that, to adjust some of the things that are in the ordinances. And it's been suggested, I believe, and by the way, attending the Appeals Review Board was a very interesting exercise. It lasted 3.5 hours, involved 15 to 18 people, including several lawyers, and it was quite an expensive process. And I think I can speak with assurance that there will be other appeals coming up as a result of the situation that you all are being involved in. So, but I think it's a great idea. More transparency, more sitting in on stuff. You all are volunteers, and I'm appreciative of that role that you're serving. So I want to fully support the idea of the Transportation Committee or some kind of a committee that could perhaps have an overview involving industry people as well as you all, and as well as city government, the airport, or whoever it might be, to kind of discuss where we are, what are these consequences, what are the problems, can we solve them? I happen to think most of them are administrative in nature, and that they won't require substantial change. I notice in today's paper that you all are perhaps going to be charged with establishing another subcommittee to deal with the taxi cab parking spaces downtown, and I don't envy you the discussions of doing that. But perhaps those things might be rolled in together some way, and I just want to be supportive. I'd also like, we belong to several national organizations, and they have ideas that they share with communities such of our size, larger and smaller, about how they've dealt with these problems of regulation, because that's really what we're talking about. And I hope, Mr. Chairman, it's all right if I would provide some information from those national sources to the commission members individually, however they could be distributed, as just kind of a setting a background of what we know, of what others know, and share the experiences of what they've done. I don't want to be presumptuous about your time and all, but I think you might find some of the information setting a background to the challenges that we have today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Lucas. Any other comments from citizens?
I think I totally agree with Mr. Lucas. As we move forward, things are changing. It's not a game of just two big companies in Oklahoma City. There will be more companies. It's inevitable. It's imperative that these committees, whatever these committees are, but there are certain things that need to be addressed immediately. We need to address that there is a major difference between taxis and shuttles. We need to address how they are operating within our cities. Who does what? How are they being done? But the key thing to solve all these problems, all these issues, there are major issues. The key to all the solution is that these four major regulating bodies have some kind of link with each other. We cannot move forward with 3, 4, 5 companies operating as private industry, as private businesses, but we have these 4 bodies, and the right hand has no clue what the left hand is doing. And we have 1 2-page application, and we take care of that, and then we go across the street and they say, well, I don't know. And we take care of that, and then we move to another building and we say, well, this is what I don't know about this, but this needs to be done. And this is directly proportional to this, but this says, I don't know about this. And that's exactly what has been going on. And this creates all these issues. It's like a dominoes effect. No one can stop. No, it's like that dialogue that you have in Tombstone. Wyatt Earp is coming and hell is coming with him. No one's going to stop these companies. No one can. This is America. It's a free enterprise. People can bring 20 companies if they want, as long as the companies meet the requirement of the law. You cannot stop an independent. You can't tell 7-Eleven don't open 20 more stores. Why not? They're entitled to it. As long as they're 1.5 miles away, They can open 40 more. BP can't tell, Shell can't tell, oh, how come we're only open 10? You're opening 40. Well, that's your management problem. You have poor management, can't manage? No one said anything 30 years back, 20 years back, that you were the only company. No one objected to that. No one is objecting now to some other company that how come you haven't grown. No one put a growth plan for you that you have to grow X amount over a period of 2 years. So these are not the issues we should be standing here and bickering about or fussing about. We need to streamline the issues that really matter in the industry. And that is, how come from the airport to the OCC to the city, there is no link? How come such a big city, no one has a clue that one little decision has such a major impact on 200 livelihoods? How come there's only one Jaffer Najam standing over here really worried about 80 plus livelihoods, 80 drivers who've got families, wives and kids? Why am I the only one, being the CEO of a company, not worried about bottom line?
Mr. Najam, your time's up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else wishing to speak? Thank you.
Again, I'm just going to support what Jafar said. It's not about the companies. It doesn't matter how many companies in the state or the city or whatever. It's a free country of a free business, as long as it serves one purpose: good service for the customer. And as Sergeant McCaleb knows, so far there is no complaints, and everything is going smooth. There is always back and forth. But what matters is all those 80 drivers that Jafar have, to a certain instinct, have 2 years with Yellow Cab, 4 years with Yellow Cab, 1 year with A1, and pretty time soon, 24 years with Express Shuttle. So if we believe in freedom of business and capitalism, this is the way of capitalism. Anybody that have paperwork done and done right and nothing wrong with it should not be stopped or held back. We just lost, as a drivers, a bunch amount of money because our application for the shuttle was held back by a reason that didn't make sense to no one of us. And hopefully that will be the last time this kind of matter happen. As I'm going toward my petroleum engineering degree, the first thing they teach us is, it's the same process for 100 years now, but after you get your license, there is always new stuff adding up, and you have to stay on top of it. So that's the way it should be. It doesn't matter how long the company been open. If things change, it should be a role on everybody in the market in the same profession. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from citizens? Commissioner Witcher.
Nothing in particular to report. The proceedings today have been eye-opening, especially in terms of the history on shuttles and that licensing, and seems like we've got some work to do to figure out where how that has developed with the many different companies kind of all under one umbrella, whether it's DBAs or separate companies. Seems like we've got some work to do on making sure there's parity, at least in the shuttle stuff. I think we are maintaining parity with the taxi, but the shuttle doesn't seem quite worked out.
Commissioner Martin?
Yes. I have one little housekeeping item. Well, I say, if I could get some selective enforcement on Miller Avenue, as resources allow, between Northwest 24th and Northwest 27th. And it occurs primarily before school and after school. So 7:30, 8, I mean, there's 3 stop signs along there, but the way people travel, they must blend into one. Thank you.
Commissioner Kula?
Yes, sir, I have a few points. First of all, I'd like to just say it might be time to go out and make sure all the cab companies are doing what they're supposed to be doing as far as cabs at stands, you know, just like we did 2 years ago kind of thing. It may be time to do a review and make sure there is not something going on out there. We aren't out there, you all are out there. If you feel that you need, I would just like to say I would support that if you want to go do some spot checking just to make sure. Second thing, it was mentioned, you know, this is a lot of shuttles coming into the service, a lot of taxi cab numbers coming into the service. It was mentioned different companies coming into the service. And one of the things that we talked about at our task force was we'll let the market decide what is the right number of taxis, whether it's 200, 400, it doesn't matter what company they would, but the number of taxis. And if you can't operate and manage a force, then you're going to be asked to leave. And you're just going to leave because you're not making any funds. So we didn't know what that right number was. You know, Yellow Cab was at 220 all by itself, then Thunder came in. Then A1 came in, then Thunder, and we're probably running about 250, 300 taxis total. We don't know what the right number is, but that's something that the market will handle for us. We decided we're not going to get in there and regulate who has X amount of taxis. So I just wanted to clear that up. As it was mentioned in the paper today, City Council is voting real shortly on metered parking, changing what we talked about last meeting. And as we talked about it, to refresh everybody's memory, it's on duty, sitting there, putting money in the meter, waiting for a fare. That's what we said we shouldn't be doing out there. And just want to make sure that that's being looked at by the city. And of course, it was mentioned by the chief of the cops that they may request some sort of task force to look at that and make sure it's right. And then the final thing was the taxi stands. And if I recall, I asked the cab companies to make a recommendation to the staff on where you would like to have taxi stands. And I don't know, did you receive anything, sir?
Mr. Najam has submitted a list of some potential locations. The only thing that we would need to do at the staff level is see how these things are going to meld with the redevelopment of downtown as part of Project 180.
Okay, and I would ask that that kind of gets moving. And even if we have to do some, these will be the taxi stands for 1 year, and then when this happens, we'll move taxi stands here. I think we need to open up some more stands and put them right where they need to be, and I would ask that we move on that. Thank you very much for your time.
Commissioner Clayton?
Nothing to add.
Commissioner Schuline?
Mr. Chairman, I think we've covered it all. Nothing to add. Thank you.
Commissioner Jenkins?
I have nothing to add.
Last but not least, Commissioner May.
I just wanted to thank all the folks that were here today for participating, because that's what this is all about, trying to get the right answer for the city. And keep in mind, every person around this horseshoe here are citizens of Oklahoma City also. And our whole job is to serve the public of Oklahoma City. And that's what the whole job of the city is for, to serve the public, and no other reason. That's why the police are here. They serve the public. And so I think that if we can keep that in mind and we can simplify some things, as you were saying earlier, about having to go to all these different committees, and when I hear that a form is out of date and was given to the person wrong, I'm not going to overemphasize that. I'm just going to make sure that people remember, get the form updated right. We owe it to our citizens to do the right thing for the right reasons and not put them through a whole lot of hours sitting out here that they could be more productive in their lives. So that's my key to this whole thing, is how do we better serve you as a citizen? And sometimes I might get a little abrupt. Mr. Richardson, I've been dealing with lawyers for the last 6 months, and when they don't answer me straight, I respond back, because at paying them $250 an hour, I deserve a straight answer. And I get a straight answer, I'll guarantee you. Thank you all very much.
Stewart?
We have no reports.
Ms. Jackson?
Nothing today.
Captain Martin?
Nothing, sir.
With that, I would entertain them. We're gone.
Second.